The House comes to questions for oral answer. Question number 1 in the name of the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Prime Minister, does he stand by his statement that his approach is, quote, to make New Zealand a better place for Kiwis and their families? And if so, will he commit to building a high-value, high-wage economy?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, yes, on behalf of the Prime Minister, I do stand by that statement and by the second statement as well. I also stand by other statements in the speech from which the member's quoting. The economy is growing, more jobs are being created, family incomes are rising, crime is falling, more elective surgeries are being done in public hospitals, long-term welfare dependency is falling, and we're continuing to help families and older New Zealanders with generous income support. New Zealand is on the right track.
Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, how is his government making New Zealand a better place when the number of long-term unemployed has increased from 14,800 in December 2008 to 44,600 in December 2013?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, as has been pointed out in this House before, on planet Labour there was no recession, but in the real world there was one. The best hope for those who do not have jobs is a strong economy generating new jobs, and that is what is happening. Of course there is more to be done, and if we persist with the government's current positive policies, a good number of those people will get jobs in the next couple of years.
Supplementary question, Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, why were 22.7% of young Māori and 20.1% of Pacific people aged 15 to 24 not in employment, education or training last year?
Order. Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, one reason is because quite a few of them went through our schooling system when there was a government in charge who thought that because they were low income, they couldn't learn, and that deprived many of those young New Zealanders of opportunities they should have had. The government is working intensively on the pipeline for young people into work and making considerable progress.
Speaker.
Supplementary question, Honourable David Cunliffe.
By what percentage did Pacific unemployment grow from December 2008 to December 2013?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, I can't give the member the exact number, but what we do know is it was too much, and too many Pacific people don't have the jobs that they deserve to have. But I can tell you that the government is working very robustly to ensure that young Pacific people at our schools are treated with respect as if they can learn, and that they do in fact learn. And if the member wants one measure, in the last year the number of young Pacifica people achieving NCA level 2 went up by 7%.
Supplementary question, Louise Upston.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. What reports has he seen supporting the government's approach to make New Zealand a better place for Kiwis and their families?
Honourable Bill English, on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, before I outline some of those reports, of course I would emphasise to the member that the government believes there is much more to do to ensure that people get jobs and have higher incomes. But the indications are promising. Consumer confidence is running at a 9-year high. Business confidence is approaching 20-year highs, and that matters because it means businesses are more likely to invest capital in new jobs and in plant machinery that creates higher income. We're particularly pleased to see that manufacturing activity has expanded for 16 consecutive months, and around 66,000 extra jobs were created in the past year, and the outlook is for further job growth.
Speaker.
Supplementary question, Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, to the Prime Minister, has productivity growth grown faster in New Zealand or Australia in the last 5 years, and if so, why?
Honourable Bill English on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I can't answer that question in detail. What I do know is that the most recent figures published, I think, were today, with productivity growth around 2.1%. We don't pretend that it's been easy to turn around the damage done by the last government. It hasn't. It's been quite difficult. And a lot of New Zealanders are beginning to understand that putting the Labor Party back in power would give them 10% first mortgage rates.
Supplementary question. Honourable David Cunliffe.
As one example of productivity, can the Prime Minister give us any rough idea of what proportion of New Zealand logs are being shipped overseas as raw logs rather than as processed timber or timber products?
Honourable Bill English on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, as I understand it, it's been a growing proportion, although I can't give the member the exact number, and I'm familiar with that because a sawmill in my own electorate has gone into receivership. Fortunately, the job growth in the South Island and increasingly in the North Island is so robust that we would expect almost all of those people who may lose their jobs if they lose their jobs at that sawmill to be able to get other jobs.
Supplementary question. Louise
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Supplementary to the Prime Minister. What other reports has he received supporting the government's approach to make New Zealand a better place for Kiwis and their children?
Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, some of the most satisfying reports are the anecdotal ones of parents, for instance, who are now pleased that their schools are required to inform all parents, not just the ones who turn up at the school, inform all parents of the progress their children are making on achievement. The other reports from older people who are now starting to understand their community is safer because there is less crime, and particularly less crime from younger people. But we're always trying to make New Zealand a better place for Kiwis and their families. For instance, we would quite like to make the Labor Party caucus family a better place for David Cunliffe.
Question number 2, Honourable Kate Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the